This is the Farm Monitor. For over 50 years, your source for agribusiness news and features from around the Southeast and across the country, focusing on one of the nation's top industries, agriculture. The Farm Monitor is produced by one of the largest general farm organizations, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now here are your hosts, Ray DeLesio and Kenny Bergamy.
All right, well, pull up a couch, clear your minds, because this, my friends, is one of those shows that you're going to want to pay close attention to.
Yeah, today we're diving into two of the bigger issues facing the ag industry right now. That is hemp and glyphosate, the popular herbicide commonly found in products like Roundup. Is it safe to use, and is it really a carcinogen like the many lawsuits and TV ads claim? To find that answer, the Monitor traveled to Washington, D.C. and met with an EPA executive who shared years of research with us about the popular weed killer. It's a conversation you need to hear for yourself before drawing conclusions on your own.
And as far as industrial hemp, it's not just coming to Georgia, it's already here. Yeah, a lot of curious minds want to know, can it thrive in Georgia? How will I know if I'm growing hemp and not something else? You're going to get to tour a UGA hemp plot with me and learn for yourself the ins and outs of the plant. Call it Hemp 101 if you will.
Plus, something else that's new, an event the folks at the Georgia National Fairgrounds said was a long time coming. You like antiques? Then stick around. These stories and so much more start right now on the Farm Monitor. No doubt you've read the headlines and seen the ads on television. It's a controversy that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. Talking, of course, about the popular herbicide glyphosate. A majority of the farmers we spoke with say they've been using it for years and have absolutely no health concerns whatsoever, nor have they even experienced health issues from using that product. Others, however, claim it was the source of their cancer. To date, it's estimated that 42,000 claims have been filed against the maker of glyphosate, Bayer. Lawsuits, the EPA claim, have no merit. Recently, the Monitor traveled to Washington, D.C. and met with an EPA executive who shared the agency's findings about glyphosate and why they feel it's as safe as your standard table salt.
A San Francisco jury on Friday found Monsanto liable in a lawsuit filed by a man who says their product caused his cancer.
Some breaking news on a closely watched lawsuit against Monsanto.
A judge has issued a preliminary ruling that would throw out the huge jury verdict against Monsanto and lead to a retrial.
Certainly in EPA's opinion, we have done an extensive both human health and ecological study. And we look at hundreds of active ingredients every year here at EPA. We have many dozens of expert scientists, and they feel very confident in the information that's available on the impacts of glyphosate. So I have not heard from our career expert scientists that they have concerns with this product.
Back in April, EPA officially announced that glyphosate is not a carcinogen. Has there been pushback from that? What kind of feedback have you gotten from the American people and producers and farmers in the ag community?
Well, EPA's finding is consistent with a finding that we have made many times over. We have looked at over 2,600 studies. And again, we have a deep bench of scientific expertise here at the agency. These findings were not just made recently. They represent the culmination of over a decade of research on glyphosate. So we have a comprehensive literature survey. We have looked at more scientific studies than almost any other nation. And our finding that glyphosate is not a human carcinogen when used according to the label, used properly, is consistent with the finding of many other nations.
Can farmers and those using this find management measures that EPA suggests in the best usage and the way to use this in their fields, around water, around families and so forth?
Well, that's a great question. So whenever EPA looks at any pesticide and how it's used out there in the environment, whether it's a homeowner or in large-scale agriculture, we always want to look at both the human health impacts and the environmental impacts. When it comes to glyphosate, again, EPA did not find that when used according to the label properly, any human health risk, particularly as a carcinogen. We did not find that. We did, however, find that glyphosate, because it is an herbicide, it will kill a weed. So for example, when you mention water, if glyphosate is sprayed over water, where it's not maybe supposed to be going, it could perhaps have effect on an aquatic plant, plants in the water. So what we do propose are what we call management measures. We want to make sure that glyphosate, particularly not the homeowners, but people that are using it large scale for agriculture, are looking at wind speed, droplet size, buffer zones. We want to make sure that we're being protective of what we call off-target impacts. We want that glyphosate to go where that weed is and stay there. And there are lots of ways to do that safely.
Again, part one of our conversation with EPA Assistant Administrator Alexandra Dunn, talking about the numerous case studies that EPA has conducted involving the weed killer glyphosate. Dunn stating that according to their research, glyphosate is not a human carcinogen when used properly and according to the label. Later in the program, we'll show you part two of that conversation. In it, Dunn addresses the many negative campaigns against glyphosate and the advice she has for farmers moving forward.
On May 10th, Governor Brian Kemp made history when he signed a bill allowing Georgia to become the 42nd state to legalize the production of hemp. And while the Georgia Department of Agriculture still awaits final approval from USDA on the particulars in order to grow hemp here in Georgia, UGA is already making headway by gathering research from the state's first industrial hemp field, a small plot in Watkinsville overseen by horticulturalist Tim Coulong, and something that yours truly was given a tour of recently for educational purposes. So Tim, essentially we're only about 6 months into this UGA hemp experiment, if you want to call it that. What have you learned so far? Is it too early to really kind of say yay or nay, or this is something that farmers are going to like here in Georgia?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily too early. I mean, we have gotten some pretty good yields in terms of biomass off of our first harvest. And so I do think that this crop is something that Georgia farmers could look at as a means to diversify their operations. In terms of CBD and the chemistry side of things, we're still waiting to do some lab analyses. But in terms of biomass, I feel that we've got some pretty good data, at least that we feel comfortable moving forward.
One of the things when you first come out here that kind of strikes you is the smell. Anybody who's ever smelled marijuana or a marijuana plant, it smells like a marijuana plant. It looks exactly like a marijuana plant. But there is the vast difference, and that's the THC. And I think here in Georgia, in order to grow the hemp or call it a hemp product, has to be 0.3% THC. How do you regulate that, or how do you grow a plant like that?
So the basis of most everything is genetics, and so the plants that are grown for industrial hemp purposes have been selected to have total THC levels below 0.3%, and usually that's sampled in the flower material. And so when farmers grow this crop in Georgia in the future, the Department of Ag will regulate what they can grow, and there'll be some testing that goes along with that. So they'll be tested regularly to make sure that those plants are below that legal threshold.
Are you happy with the research so far, what you found?
I think so. It's been interesting. It's confirmed some things and brought some new things to light. Definitely being a new crop where we don't have the last 100 years worth of research data to draw upon, there's a lot of unanswered questions that we're still going to have.
Yeah, and when you look at this crop, this particular crop we're standing on from high above, you see a little vast differences. What would we be looking at there?
So the reason you're seeing differences out here are because we put out 24 different varieties that we got fairly late in the season. And so we expected, honestly, most of them not to do that well because of how late it was planted. And of course, some of them, as you can see out here, did not do very well. They got about a foot tall and flowered, and that was it. But then other material, such as what's right here in front of us, actually flowered but continued to grow and put on quite a bit of biomass.
Can you give us a little bit of an anatomy of the plant itself? I mean, are you that well versed in hemp yet?
Well, I would say, what you're looking for as a farmer is if you're growing for the CBD market, basically you want flower material. Okay. And so that's all these flower buds here. And these are all female plants out here. And so these are non-fertilized female flowers. You don't want seed. You don't want male plants to fertilize them. That'll slow down growth. And so basically you're growing this plant for this flower material. When you harvest it, you'll take the plant, you'll dry it down, and then you'll strip this flower material from it, and that's what would be sold to a processor to make CBD and so forth.
All right, so there you have it, a brief synopsis of hemp and its potential here in Georgia. Now, 2 points of clarification. Number one, the 2018 Farm Bill defines hemp as the cannabis plant with the THC content below 0.3%. That will be uniform across the country. Secondly, the Georgia Department of Ag won't necessarily be telling farmers what varieties to grow because at this point, there's nothing in their regulations or USDA's regulations that addresses approved varieties. That is according to a department official. Now, they also say that fields will be tested prior to harvest to ensure that the plant's THC content is within the legal limit. Now, still to come, part two of Kenny's interview with EPA Assistant Administrator Alexander Dunn. One of the questions posed to her, what can farmers do to help dispel misconceptions or misinformation about glyphosate? Like so many other industries, agriculture has come a long way in terms of technology and equipment. And although advancements are great, it's important that we never forget the past and where we've come from. That was the goal in Perry as the Georgia National Fairgrounds and Agri Center hosted its inaugural Antique Ag Show. John Holcomb reports.
Agriculture has been around since the dawn of time. And of course, since the beginning, the equipment and technology has come a long way. But with such a separation from ag, many think the equipment farmers use now is what they've always used, which is why the Georgia National Fairgrounds and Agri Center decided to put on their first ever Antique Ag Show.
Here at the Ag Center, we do a lot of things. Anything from this weekend, we have a gypsy horse show, we have a saddlebred horse show, we have a rabbit show, and a car event. So we pride ourselves in being diverse, and we have never had an antique tractor show. And so we feel like it's important. Part of our mission is to promote agriculture and be a place where people can do business as agriculture. And we felt like it was important for us to reach back into our history and to our roots and offer something educational to teach everybody about the way we used to do it.
The room was filled with antique tractors that collectors had brought from all over the U.S. Each tractor you would look at, the detail put into restoring them was amazing, which shows just how passionate the collectors are, especially when some have been collecting them since before they were a teenager.
I bought my first Model A Ford when I was 11 years old, and I still have it. And as a result of that, I think it just gave me a connection with antiquities. And I had an interest in tractors. My father had a farm, and we were able to have a little small tractor, and it just that interest just blossomed. I'm probably not like the typical collector. I have thousands of pieces. I have hundreds of tractors and hundreds of cars, and that's not normal. And I think you're better off not to have that many. But to me, I'm a preservationist. I'm trying to preserve some of this stuff for the future. I'm not trying to hoard it. I'm not trying to corner the market. I just think that there's an importance in preserving our history and understanding kind of what sacrifices were made for us to get where we are today.
In preserving them, he hopes to show younger generations what was once used so that they can appreciate agriculture's history.
I think we have not the appreciation that we really should for what our forefathers had to endure to get us where we are. The methods of planting and harvesting or just literally riding down the road in an automobile, all those things have advanced so much over the years. And to me, it's important to preserve that chronology, to be able to say this is kind of where we started and these are the improvements were made, and those improvements were made by man.
One of the other interesting things at the show was a peanut thrashing, in which they demonstrated how peanuts were thrashed using equipment that would have been used in the early 1900s. Just one more way they were showing how far we've come.
We want to open eyes. We want to make an impact in that if we can find somebody and create interest in agriculture. So it may pique some interest in agriculture, something that they haven't seen before. Because these exhibits have come from all over, from Florida, from North Carolina, from Minnesota, one from Texarkana. So these are collections that you don't see because they're hidden in their barns. And so we're trying to pique interest.
Reporting in Perry for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
We all know that ALMA is Georgia's blueberry capital, which is why having readily available packing and distribution centers in the area is so important. And one of those, ALMA Pack, provides an added service to the growers. Damon Jones has more.
While Georgia might be known as the peach state, it's actually blueberries that have dominated fruit production in recent years. And no community in the state is more synonymous with blueberries than ALMA. And it's where one packing facility is owned and operated by the farmers themselves.
ALMA Pack, started with the idea of the shareholders that are involved in ALMA Pack and own ALMA Pack are blueberry growers. So that is how it started, and why it still exists today is because the shareholders that own this company actually are blueberry growers as well.
So they know the importance of keeping their fruit viable year-round, which is the main reason for this operation at the facility.
We package retail frozen fruits. Walmart is our primary customer, great value brand. And we take bulk frozen fruits and package them into small retail packages.
However, getting them from the field to package ready is not as simple as it sounds, as each blueberry is individually cleaned and frozen before they can hit the shelves.
The process of freezing the blueberries is very extensive. It's a lot of equipment, a lot of cleaning, and to get the blueberries to a finish where they're frozen and clean and ready for a retail setting.
And consumers can rest assured they will be getting the safest, highest quality produce on the market.
Food safety is our highest priority. The polybag production is considered a ready-to-eat product, so we have to make sure there's no contaminations, no foreign materials. We want to ensure we're delivering a high-quality, very safe product for the consumers.
In addition to the regulatory agencies, we have third-party audits that we have to comply with per customer requirements, and customer audits as well. So it's fairly extensive and very expensive, the requirements we meet just to get the blueberries out to the consumers.
Not only does this facility provide the growers with everything they need post-harvest, it also has the added benefit of being right in their backyard.
Number one, we're local, and we're able to freeze and pack the blueberries and market, where it be fresh or froze, without having to ship them to other locations outside the state, which is very expensive to do.
Reporting from Bacon County, I'm Damon Jones for the Farm Monitor.
Damon, thanks so much. Now up next, part 2 of our conversation with EPA about glyphosate, their reaction to the negative TV ads and what they say farmers can do to help advocate for the many benefits of the product. At the top of the show, we brought you part 1 of our interview with EPA Assistant Administrator Alexander Dunn, who spoke at great lengths regarding the agency's study of glyphosate and why they say it is not a carcinogen, nor does it pose any threat to human health. In part 2 of that interview, Dunn reiterates their findings and addresses the negative media campaigns against glyphosate.
Farm workers, landscapers, and homeowners who've been exposed to the weed killer Roundup may be at risk for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or other cancers of the blood.
What do you say to average mom who says, I see these ads on television, they're scaring me and my family? What's the message you want from the EPA delivered to homeowners, to soccer moms, to people across America about this?
Well, once again, we stand behind our science. We're a science-driven agency, and again, all of the science behind our assessment of glyphosate is available. I'm not saying it's an easy look through 2,600 studies on our website, but we feel very confident in our finding that when used properly according to the label, glyphosate does not pose any human health risk whatsoever. We even set food tolerances, so the residues that can be left on corn perhaps that might be turned into a cereal product and be on someone's breakfast table. You may have heard some studies that trace elements of glyphosate have been found in cereals. But all of those trace elements are consistent with the law that is protective, and we take a very conservative approach. We're assuming a quantity of someone being exposed to that glyphosate in a way that no one would actually in real life be exposed to.
So Alex, where do we go from here? Is this a long, drawn-out process? Is this battle not going away?
No, this is really an ongoing discussion that we have, and what we keep coming back to, our home base is our scientific finding and the depth of our scientific expertise. We want to try to avoid getting into the sensational stories around this chemistry and really focus again on what does our science say. And our science says that this product can be used safely, has been used safely for a long time. What we're going to be doing now is moving into the next phase of re-registering glyphosate for use. So what we put out in April of this year was our preliminary re-registration decision. You know, as I said, under the law, we take a look at these pesticides every 15 years to make sure that they're as safe as possible, because we always are getting new information. And so next spring, we'll be putting forward our final decision to re-register glyphosate.
With that being said, what should farmers do in the meantime? Are there members of Congress they should contact to voice their support that they're able to continue to use this? Should they make a comment to the EPA? What should they be doing?
Well, right now our comment period has closed on our preliminary decision, which is to re-register glyphosate. Again, not finding human health risk when used properly according to the label, and then of course with the ecological buffers and other restrictions that we think would be appropriate. We did hear from growers about those. We always have robust conversations about how much space we need to leave to protect, to minimize those off-target impacts. We know that growers are very responsible in how they use glyphosate and all products on their farms. I mean, frankly, when I talk to growers, they emphasize that these products cost them. They are a cost. They are not wasteful with them, and they really want to use very strategic use of chemical on their products and on their crops. So what I would urge growers to do is to continue to tell their story about how environmentally responsible they are. I mean, they really are stewards of the land. I've had such a privilege in this role to meet with many growers, and for them to talk about the fact that they work the farm, they work with their father, their grandfather, their uncles, their own sons and daughters. They really are stewards. And I think that the more they tell their story about what it means to responsibly use pesticides in growing food for a hungry planet is really important. We encourage people to look at EPA as a scientific expert agency. There are a lot of sources of information on the internet, on TV, that frankly aren't science-based. We are a science-based agency. Our work is transparent. As I said, all those studies that we looked at, it's a deep dive, but if someone wanted to go through them, they could. We show our work. It's kind of like when you were in grade school and you do a math problem and your teacher would say, I don't want to know how you got the answer, I want to see how you did the work. We show our work, and we are very transparent on this matter, and we feel very confident.
All right, and more than once you heard Assistant Administrator Dunn say how all the information about glyphosate and EPA's findings is available online. Yes, a lengthy read, but very insightful. All you have to do is log on to EPA.gov and type glyphosate in the search bar.
Excellent job, my friend.
Thank
Very
you.
nicely done. Well, unfortunately, our job as a team is done. This particular show, that is, you're not getting rid of us that easy.
Yeah. Before we go, however, a reminder that for all the latest ag info regarding food, great recipes, and what's happening out on the farm, be sure you check out our Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest pages. You'll stay informed and see what's up in the world of farming, plus with us right here on the show.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week right here on the Farm Monitor.
As always, have a great week.